Good morning, everyone. My name's Alicia Smith. I am here representing FILEX this morning as we get underway with our presenter application info session. You guys are actually able to hear me and see me. Can I just get a comment over in the comment box? Anything you want to put, feel free to put maybe how many FILEXs you've attended or a good morning or just something over in the comment box. Awesome. Thanks, Simone. That's great. Morning, Lane, Abby. Nice to have you guys join me. Rachel, hi. Perfect. Okay, that's fantastic. So I can see there's about 15 of you online so far. We do have around 40 people registered. Morning, guys. Everyone's here. That's fantastic. But if you do know of anyone that's interested in finding out more about how to present at FILEX, we will be making the video of this morning's recording available online at filex.com.au within the next few days. So if you do know of anyone, thanks, Linda. That's awesome. We'll make sure that everyone has access to this session. So obviously, I know you guys are all really busy. I'm not going to take up a ton of your time, but I do want to make sure that we cover all of the key things. So here's what we're going to be looking at today. Let me just get my PowerPoint going. All right, so the first thing that we're going to cover off are the key dates. And then the most important part of today's webinar is really all about how I can help give you the information to maximize your opportunities and of your application being successful, I suppose, is the most important part. You know, we get a lot of applications coming in every year, so it's really, really important that we give you all the information that you need to make sure that your application is as well written, as comprehensive and clear as possible, so that it gets put right at the top of our attention, right at the top of our list for consideration. So what we're looking for from you, how to put your application together. So what are the components or the things that you're going to need to submit to us? Sponsorship and remuneration. So what the opportunities are for sponsoring yourself as a speaker if you have a brand that you want to connect to your session, or also remuneration opportunities. So how do we pay? What do we pay? How does that work? Outcomes and notifications. So what are the possible outcomes of your application? How and when will you be notified? And then we'll make some time at the end for any questions that you've got. So if you've got anything that's popping to mind while I'm going through, feel free to just add it into the comments box on the side. I'll come back to it. And we'll go through all of the questions together at the end so that we make sure that we cover off everything that you guys would like to ask. All right, so let's jump into it. First and foremost are the important dates. So applications are going to be open. I've got here 9th of June. I'm not 100% sure if we've got them open right now today, but if we don't, they'll be open Monday morning. So that should be the 11th, and we'll make sure that you're all notified of that. I've got everyone's email address. Thanks for putting it in when you registered, so we can make sure that we keep you notified. Applications will be open for 1 month. So you'll need to make sure that you submit your application and all of your submission material to us by no later than July 9th. Now it's a short window, it's a 4-week period, but what we find is that if we open it up for significantly longer than that, people tend to drip feed bits and pieces in. And for us, it's really important that we have a pretty firm date that we close applications. There's a lot of work that goes into putting the program together. So we make sure that if we keep that application window short and sharp, people seem to get their applications in, and we make sure that we're getting, we're making sure that we're putting the time that we need into the actual program development component. We'll notify you by the absolute latest October 31st. Now, the program will probably be coming out live around that time, so there's a very good chance that you would know either way well before that. And particularly if we've got some questions around your submission, maybe things around equipment or how we might be able to manage the logistics of your particular session or sessions, then you could probably expect to hear from us even earlier than that. So we just say October 31st gives us that time that we need to make sure we can put the jigsaw puzzle together. And of course, most important is FILEX itself will be running from the 12th to the 14th of April next year. I've got 2018, sorry, that should say 2019. So 12th to the 14th of April 2019. So obviously, if you're going to apply, please make sure that you are available on those dates so that we can make sure that we can get you there. All right, so jumping straight into what we're looking for. We get hundreds, possibly thousands of sessions crossing our application portal, our submission system, which is called Corinda, every year. And it's no small job, I can assure you, to filter through, to sift through, to assess, to view, to review all of those sessions. So it's really important that your session, your application stands out for all the right reasons. So some of the things that we're looking for in our FILEX presenters are that you're polished, you're professional, and you're prepared. So, we're not looking for the slickest presenters out there. We love to foster new talent and find some people that are first timers, like many of you that are here this morning are. But we do need you to make sure that you've really put the time into putting your presentation together really well. That doesn't just mean the presentation on the day, but it also means your concept, your submission application. So you've got a month to refine any ideas that you have currently. I recommend that you really get onto it soon. So make sure that the submission that you put together for us is of really good quality, because that will make sure it gets our attention. We're looking for sessions and presenters that are unique but relevant. That's important to us because we've got to make sure that we're servicing the needs and wants of the fitness industry. And over the past couple of weeks, and also looking at the session evaluations and the event feedback from the 2018 event, we've been pulling together a lot of evaluations and feedback, reaching out to key stakeholders in the fitness industry to make sure that the event that we put together for 2019 really does reach those objectives and hits the needs and the wants of the fitness industry. So, of course, what that means as far as the session content that we're looking for is that it really should be sessions that are delivering incredible value for trainers, for group fitness instructors, for business owners, club managers, membership consultants. We've got a really wide range of people that come to FILEX. So if you've got a unique angle on a topic that might have been done before, then that's what we're looking for. We're aiming to not just repeat the same type of content or the same titled content year on year. So if you've got a unique angle of something that is relevant to the fitness industry, then you're the kind of person that we would love to hear from. So the next thing is that you do need to be an expert, or at very least experienced in your field. As I mentioned, we get so many incredible applications coming in every single year, and we have people from all over the globe applying to present. It's not just Australian presenters, as you would know. This is one of the events on the fitness industry calendar globally that even the biggest of international fitness presenters love to be a part of. So because of that, it's really important that you're speaking in an area that speaks to your expertise. So for instance, if you're applying to present a session on prenatal training or pre or postnatal training, but you don't have any qualifications or much significant experience in that area, it's going to be really hard for you to be chosen over someone that's coming to us with extensive qualifications, presenting experience, really a very big bank or library to pull from of experience in that field. So it's important that while we're encouraging first-time presenters to get involved, do make sure that it's an area that's of expertise for you. And as I mentioned, hundreds of applications are coming in. Make sure you stand out for the right reasons. So don't tell us that you can present on anything. We often have people just submit a general application saying, I can do anything in the personal training space. Fantastic. I'm sure that you can, but you need to deliver to us what you're going to tell us. Only you are the expert on you. So you're going to need to let us know what you want to submit or what you want to present on. Please don't submit a branded program without being an official representative. So for instance, let's say that you wanted to deliver a BOSU session. You couldn't really deliver a BOSU branded session unless you're a BOSU master trainer or an animal flow master trainer delivering an animal flow session, or a piloxing master trainer delivering a piloxing session. So if you're going to submit a program or a branded program session, it's important that we know that you are an official representative of the program. Doesn't mean that you can't use those components in your session. No, not at all. If you wanted to use a balance trainer of some type in your personal training or group training session, absolutely, please go for it. But know that it's always dependent on how the program is spread and what equipment is available. And lastly, please do not ignore the requirements of what the submission asks you to put together. So we do require you to have a small video. I'll tell you more about that in a moment. But if you don't submit all of the submission requirements, it makes it impossible for us to assess you on a like against like kind of manner or structure. So it's really important that we have all of those requirements are met. So I'm just going to pop back and check the, Jason, great. Can you submit more than one presentation application? 100% you can. You can submit endless number of sessions, put in as many as you like. And in fact, I highly recommend that if you are a first-time presenter that you're not just submitting one session. Give us a range to choose from, because there might be one thing that you put in that someone doesn't. You might decide to put in a session on, for example, conditioning for field athletes, and no one else has done that. And that might be the one session that gives us the opportunity to put you into the program. Whereas if you're putting in, a group training session a boot camp session, for instance, and we have 15 other people applying in the same area, that makes it a lot more tricky for us to choose you. So yeah, great question. Okay, next up. Things to prepare for your submission. We're going to need a bio. Something short and sharp is fantastic, 80 to 90 words. You can have, if you've attended FILEX in the past, you'll be familiar with the bios. They're the things that tell us a little bit about who you are as a presenter and why you're standing in front of people to present your session. If you need an example, you'll be able to take a look back at previous FILEX descriptions that we've had. You might, if you've attended FILEX in the past and you've still got a brochure, you'll be able to have a look at that. You can always email us as well. So if you're not sure about how to format your bio, feel free to send through an email. We've got our email address at the very end of this webinar, and you'll be able to reach out to myself or to our event management company, the association specialists, and they'll be able to give you some more information and some examples as well. We need a headshot of you. It doesn't need to be shot by a professional, though that obviously does look fantastic, particularly if we're going to use it in a brochure or on the website or on any kind of print material. It needs to be a high resolution image, and it should be something of you that looks professional, that, isn't just a you cropped out of a photo from Saturday night out with your friends. So do make sure that it does look professional, and we can tell who you are. We can see your features. We want to know your qualifications. There'll be a place for you to put this information in the submission system, but please only give us your relevant qualifications. If you've got a Certificate 3 in hairdressing, that's fantastic, but it's probably not going to be so relevant to us in terms of assessing your relevance and your experience in terms of being a presenter at FILEX. So relevant qualifications only. We will ask you to submit a video as well. 15 minutes minimum. You don't really need to do any more than that, because that will give us a really great idea of how you are a presenter or how you present. And all it needs to be is you talking or delivering to a small group of people. We do want real humans. Please do not just do a talking head to camera in the way that I'm talking right now. We want to see how you interact with your audience. We want to see how you're delivering the information and whether you have the ability to adjust or modify your delivery in order to suit who's in the room. The only exemptions to this rule is if you've already presented for us at FILEX in 2018. Now, in the past, we've said in the last 2 FILEXs, we haven't required a video. So if you presented, say, 2018, 2017, then you wouldn't require a video. But as many of you will know, FILEX has recently changed ownership. And so it's important for us that the programming team of FILEX 2019 has as much information as possible to give you the opportunity to be selected as a presenter. So again, 15-minute video, real humans in the room with you. And the only exemption to that rule will be if you presented at FILEX 2018. Please don't submit your application and say, I don't have a video, sorry. We actually just will not be able to assess you. So it's really important that you do include that video. If you've got any questions about the video, you can feel free to pop them in the chat, and we can make sure that you've got all the information you need. Simon, that's great. Thank you. Glad to hear that it's an easy process. It's what we want to do. Make it easy for you, makes it easy for us as well. So let's talk about the actual submission itself. So there's a few things that you're going to need to put together for us. So for each session that you'd like to submit, referencing Jason's question before, he asked how many you can submit. You can submit as many as you like. We do recommend that you give us at least a few to choose from. So, if you're a new presenter, you might want to put forward 2, 3, 4 session ideas, understanding that quite possibly one or maybe none will be chosen this year, but please do keep trying if you don't make it through to the 2019 program. So you'll put together session title, session description, and session outline. They're the 3 key components. Your session title is so important. It needs to be original and eye-catching. And you want to think about avoiding things such as negatives. Like, you don't want to use a double negative, such as, 20 or a negative full stop, like 20 things not to do as a personal trainer. Those types of session titles tend to not really get as much interest as the 20 top tips for being the best personal trainer, something along those lines. So avoid negatives, avoid trashy language or things that are super colloquial or that are maybe very regional in nature. So I've got an example at the bottom of this slide here that shows you a great example is the art and science of glute training. Now, that was one that Brett Contreras did a couple of years ago. An example that probably would get our attention for the wrong reasons is Big Booty Beat Down. It's got a good vibe and a good sound to it, but it just doesn't really come across with that kind of level of professionalism that we're looking for at an event like FILEX. So do be aware of trashy language. Also, try to avoid the excessive use of fitness puns. from strength to strength, those types of things, they've been done to death. And while they can sometimes be really catchy, they can tend to also just fall by the wayside a little bit. So try to come up with an original and maybe eye-catching way to frame your session title, or as per the example, the art and science of glute training. That's, it's piqued my curiosity. I want to know what is the art of it, but I also understand what I'm going to get is the science of glute training. So that makes it an easy choice for me as a delegate to get my attention and to make me want to read onto the session description. Session description's next. So as far as the session, Lane, let me answer your question. With the video, can you use a past presentation you've done to an audience that is not related to the topic you plan to submit for FILEX 2019? Yeah, absolutely, provided it's still relevant content for FILEX. So an example is a couple of years back, we had someone submit a video of them doing stand-up comedy in a theater to an audience, but unfortunately that doesn't show us what kind of fitness educator you're going to be. It just shows me what kind of stand-up comic you are. So it's completely fine if you have a past presentation. If it's not on the exact same topic that you're planning to submit for FILEX, it's not a problem, as long as it is fitness industry related, or it can speak to the fitness industry audience so that we can clearly assess you. Jason, no problem that you've got to catch up on video. You're all good. You've presented before. You know what you're doing. Okay, so back to session description. So the session description is what we use on the website and in marketing materials to sell your session. And this is what sells your session to us as well. So I've got an example here below for you. Potentiate your periodized programming. So a super interesting title. It's got all the P's in it. So that's, that kind of, it has that sound that just makes you pay a little bit more attention to it. It's by Richard Scrivener. We had him present at FILEX a couple of years ago. How can you structure a workout that gets results with clients and athletes who have varying abilities, demands, and goals? The question gets really good attention. Join Rich to learn how to build a client-athlete matrix and then set about intelligently applying a considered, structured, and progressive overload stimulus. Take home the know-how to build awesome workouts for everyone from your once-a-weekers to your help me squat twice my body weight client. So the reason this is such a great session is it does a number of things. It starts with that question, as I mentioned, so it gets my attention and makes me start to ask myself whether I do know how to do that. It also tells me really clearly what I can expect to get out of the session with Rich. So I know that I'm going to learn how to build a client-athlete matrix. If I don't know what that is, it's probably going to pique my attention again. And then set about intelligently applying considered, structured, and progressive overload stimulus. So I know exactly what I'm going to get out of this session. And it also tells me who the appeal is for. So it's for people who, people that are training, anyone from the once-a-weekers to the clients that really have some serious goals in terms of what they're lifting. So this is a really great example of a session description that really hits home for us. It's very well written. It required very minimal, if any, editing on our part, which is fantastic. The less work that we have to do on your session description to make it really, kind of hum or sing is a great thing. So it's important, but anything that you're going to submit, if you know that you're perhaps not the best writer yourself, you could consider having a friend or family member or someone in the industry or someone that that writes really well, read over it and edit it for, before you submit it. Okay, next. Session outline. So the session outline is really at this point just for internal use only. It helps us understand that you have actually formulated a bit of a plan around what your session might be. Even if it's not written at this point, we understand, almost a year out from the event, it's probably not going to be completely written, but we do want to know that you've put together a really clear idea of what you're going to cover and what objectives you're going to be meeting. So think about just breaking down the plan for your session. Here's a really basic example. I'm going to spend the first 5 minutes of my session on a topic introduction and the background of Alicia's XYZ Kids protocol. The next 10 minutes we'll be looking at developmental stages in kids of 3 to 12 years of age, followed by 5 minutes on motor skill development, then 5 minutes on the LTAD model, and then 20 minutes of games, drills, and programming, followed by a 5-minute summary and wrap up. So as an assessor or as someone that's reviewing these applications as they come in, if I get something like that with my session outline for a submission, that really helps to understand or to demonstrate exactly what it is that you're planning to achieve and how that session might flow. Again, I haven't asked to specifically explain what that 10 minutes of developmental stages on kids and 3 to 12-year-olds is going to cover, but it just gives your reviewers a really good understanding that you've put something solid together and that we know that there's going to be some really good objectives that are going to be met within that time frame, within that session. Okay, all good on session outline so far? If anyone has any questions, do feel free to throw them over in the chat box on the side, and I'll just keep addressing them from time to time or hold them on to the end. Okay, equipment. This is primarily for practical, well, it is just for practical sessions really. So for personal training and group fitness sessions, outdoor sessions, things of that nature. Equipment for an event the size of FILEX is huge, as I'm sure you can imagine. If you've already attended FILEX yourself, you would understand that it's no small task. We have an event crew team, I think, of probably around 130, 140 event crew are working like crazy behind the scenes to make sure that equipment are going to all the different rooms and all areas of the convention center while you're in sessions and then during sessions in between. So please do be aware that if you put together an equipment request list that is as long as your arm, it's going to make it really hard for us to choose. If you have obscure or onerous requests, so if you have a piece of equipment that can only be sourced in Abu Dhabi and you're asking for 50 of them to be, provided for your session at FILEX, that's going to make it really, really hard for us to choose your session. Also, as I mentioned, if you have too many requests for equipment, that's incredibly hard for us. So do try to think about doing as much as you can with as little as possible, and have a way that maybe you can substitute. If you would typically like to have kettlebells and dumbbells, is there a way that you could use one or the other for the same, for the purposes of your session, as opposed to feeling like you have to have all of those pieces of equipment? Please do be flexible. There will be times when we might ask you, we might reach out and say, hey, I know that you asked for this, but there's another session at this time that is, it's bigger and we're going to need all of that piece of equipment in this particular session. What else could you use instead out of what we have available? We'll always do that in the lead up to the event wherever possible. There may be a chance where a supplier who's providing equipment to us for the event just isn't able to deliver on the day, or something happens, maybe something gets stuck in freight, and there may be a chance that on the day there could be a challenge with a piece or some pieces of the equipment that you've requested. So try to be flexible, work with us. We'll do the absolute best we can to make sure that any opportunity for that to occur is minimized, and that whatever we've got available to offer to you to use is at your beck and call. But do know that being flexible is really important. As I mentioned, behind the scenes, there's a lot going on. It's not just the event crew. We have our event management team, the association specialists, and we have a ton of incredible suppliers who just help us make an event the size of FILEX possible through the use of their equipment. So with all of those moving pieces, the more flexible and the easier you can be to work with, then the easier it is for us to deliver a great event, and the more chance there is of you being invited back again. Okay, questions. So Sean says, can we bring our own equipment if it's easy to get into the event? Absolutely, and we are so welcome to that. There's a question on the application form that asks you whether or not it's possible for your session to go ahead without your requested equipment, or whether there are other opportunities, like could you connect us to a supplier? Could you bring some of your own? So provided we know what's coming in and that's planned ahead of time, because we have to work with the convention center staff to get dock access and all kinds of things like that, we're so grateful, welcoming and open to having you supply some equipment. Feel free to note that in your application, or you can email us if there are specifics that you want to address. Great question. Okay, on to remuneration. So with remuneration, think of your first FILEX as well as your application that you're about to submit as your interview. We need to make sure that our delegates are really not just happy, but blown away by your sessions that you deliver at the event. So it's important to us that you understand that your first FILEX, you're not going to be able to expect to get thousands of dollars coming in for one session. It's just not the way that it happens. And also for an event the size and nature of FILEX, where we're flying presenters in from around the world, and we're trying to do as much as we possibly can to make it great value for money for our delegates. Sometimes it means that we cannot pay, thousands of dollars or even hundreds of dollars to presenters that are coming into to present for the first time. Your travel and accommodation may or may not be covered depending on the level of session that you're delivering and how appealing you as a presenter will be to our delegate base. So a really great example is if we have someone that we're bringing in from overseas that's a headliner, like a tier 1 presenter that we know is going to get a couple of hundred people turning up to the event, then obviously for us that return on investment of covering their travel and accommodation is not only valuable, but it's important to make sure that person can be at the event. If you're a first-time presenter, it does not by any means that you are mean that you are any less valuable. Every single presenter is so incredibly valuable to us, but what we have to consider is the return on investment. So if it is your first time, you'll need to be aware that your travel and accommodation will most likely not be covered. You're willing to get yourself to the event, to accommodate yourself at the event and cover your costs while you're there. There is typically a first-time presenter fee. However, if you'd like to have your brand attached to your session, and we'll talk about that in a moment in sponsorship, then typically that's waived and you're agreeing to cover all of your costs in exchange for having your brand attached to your session. You obviously get a complimentary pass to attend the event, and as a presenter myself, I can tell you this is one of the most valuable parts of it. I love being at FILEX, not just for my opportunity to share education with fitness industry colleagues and friends, but also because I get to just soak up as much information as I possibly can from all of the other amazing presenters that are on the schedule. So you'll get one pass to attend, and I highly recommend that you make the most of that as well. You'll get discounted access to additional events and invitation to a VIP and presenter function, which typically happens on the Saturday night at FILEX. And that's an incredible opportunity. You're standing shoulder to shoulder with all of the presenters at FILEX, including some of the leading fitness experts from around the world. And it's an incredible opportunity for you to just be a part of celebrating the success of FILEX and just of our fitness industry in general. So that's kind of how the remuneration side of things works. Let me tell you that your first few FILEXs, it's really just all about making sure that you're doing something that you love and that you're delivering for the right reason. So if you think that this is something that's going to be a massive money maker for you just from delivering one session, then I would really encourage or urge you to have a think about what it is that's motivating you to be a part of an event like FILEX. Okay, no questions on there so far. Sponsorship, as I mentioned, sponsorship can be from yourself as a presenter representing your own brand, or it could be from a third-party organization. This is something that if you're interested in sponsoring your session or sponsoring multiple sessions, I do recommend that you get in touch with the team at the Association Specialist. I'll give you the email again on the last slide. So you can reach out to get the specifics around exactly how that will work. There are different levels of sponsorship available. And again, you don't have to sponsor just yourself, but you could consider sponsoring other presenters or other events within the whole FILEX conference itself. Think about the return. So you're going to have your logo attached to something. You have the opportunity to have an introduction, which is typically called our room hosting role. You'd get to room host yourself or have someone from your company room host your session to introduce you to the delegates and tell them a bit about your brand. And there may also be opportunities for delegate data access. At this stage, I couldn't tell you exact specifics around that, but what I would say is that you have an interest in sponsoring, again, just reach out to us. It's also really important to us that the sponsor role is not just a straight up sales pitch. People come to FILEX because they know that they can trust us to deliver great quality, cutting edge education where they're not going to be sold a ton of different stuff all the time. Obviously, sponsorship is so important to us because an event like FILEX cannot happen without the support of our incredible sponsors, but it's also important to us that we balance the amount of sponsor information that's going out with the amount of education that's on offer in each session too. So it's really vital that you're making sure that your session is not just a sales pitch for your brand. It has to have solid educational content. We'll be able to see that in the session outline and description. And sessions that really do come across as just a sales pitch will not be selected for FILEX 2019 or beyond. Cool. Okay. How are we going so far over there, guys? Everyone okay? Still with me? Great. Thanks, Lane. Appreciate your feedback. Okay, so the outcomes. Now, this is a massive jigsaw puzzle. Putting together FILEX takes a really long time. It takes a lot of people and a really long time. The program itself is incredibly complex. We have to make sure that we're balancing domestic and international presenters, males and females, content across myriad different streams. We've got to make sure that equipment is available for this session while this session is happening, that the rooms are allocated according to the size of the session. There is so many moving pieces in this, and it really does take us an incredible amount of work to put it together. The right mix is vital. So what happens if not successful? If you hear from us by the end of October when we finish putting the jigsaw together that you haven't been successful, the first thing I want to say to you is please, please, please do not give up. We would love to see your submissions come back again for future years and future events. Oftentimes, we cannot give individual feedback on exactly why your session wasn't successful. I mentioned before that we get, thousands of individual session applications coming into us from hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of presenters around the world. So we simply cannot give individualized feedback on the sessions. But, don't hesitate to reach out if you feel like you've applied now a number of years in a row and haven't been successful. Do feel free to reach out and ask some questions around why that might be. We'll give you as much information as we can. Please be professional. If you receive an email telling you that you were not successful for the FILEX 2019 program, don't take it personally. I know easier said than done, but please do respond professionally. No one in the programming team likes to be attacked. And so if we know that you've taken the feedback on board, or that you've taken the outcome on board and being professional, we remember that kind of stuff, and we want to work with great people who are doing great things. So we'll look for opportunities for ways that we can do that in future, as opposed to if we get an email coming back attacking us or accusing us of nepotism or cronyism or whatever it might be. We remember those things too. So do try to handle it professionally, and feel free to reach out if you have specific questions. And an important point to note is that even seasoned and draw card presenters are rested. We have so many people that want to be a part of FILEX, and as much as we would love to have everyone, we just can't. We don't have the budget, we don't have the space, we don't have the delegates to have every single presenter that wants to be a part of it. But also it's important for us that we're trying to find some fresh faces, that we're bringing in new content, and that we're keeping things fresh for our delegates so that they're interested in attending year on year. So for that reason, we can't always have the same presenters back. You might be asking, well, we've seen some presenters come back year on year, and typically that's because the level of feedback that they get, or the standard of feedback that they get, is so high that it's impossible for us to not have them back at least for a couple or a few years in a row. But typically you'll find that even they get rested as well. So they're the typical outcomes. That's the no outcome. If that happens, don't take it personally. We still think you're great. We just need to refine or keep working on it. Another thing is that sometimes if you put forward a session and we've got someone coming in from overseas that we're bringing it as a draw card presenter or a keynote, obviously we're going to need to choose that session from them over the session from you. So what if you are successful? Fingers crossed. Whoops, I've gone too far. What if you are successful? Well, you can expect to hear from us, as I mentioned, by the end of October. And then from that point on, from October through to April 12th next year, you can expect to hear from Taz, that's the association specialist that I mentioned, managed the event logistics for us and the running of the event, and from FILEX directly. We will be reaching out to you with your presenter agreement and waiver. It's important that you sign your presenter agreement because it will have all of the information in there about the sessions that you've been selected for, what the conditions of your engagement are, all of that kind of stuff. So that's a really important document that you'll need to keep an eye out for. Conditions or restrictions on trade. Now, typically what this means is that obviously, if we're investing time and money into putting an event like FILEX together where we're bringing presenters in from around the world, we can't really have those presenters delivering the same or very similar content in a close, like geographically close area within a certain time frame of the event happening. So your presenter agreement will stipulate all of that. But if you've got concerns when you go to submit your application, feel free to email us about that and we can check with you, or we can confirm with you what those details are. So let's say that you were delivering the art and science of glute training. We wouldn't be able to have you deliver that at FILEX if 2 weeks before you delivered it at another event in the same city or somewhere close. So do be aware that we like to have as much unique content as we can, and that there is at least, a time frame of at least a month or so between you presenting the content at FILEX and the content somewhere else. Obviously, if we know that we're going to have exclusive access or first-time access to that content, that's an incredible motivation for us to do it. So, for instance, this year, the 2018 event, one of the pre-cons that we ran was the Great Movement Mashup with Michelle Dowcall, Mike Fitch, and Ryan Hurst. That had never been done anywhere in the world, and they were keeping that content specifically to deliver at FILEX 2018. So, that makes it really easy for us to select those types of things if we know that we're going to have exclusive access or first release access to that for our delegates. Session notes. We'll also ask you to submit session notes to us around about a month or 6 weeks out from the event occurring, and those specific dates will be laid out in your presenter agreement. So session notes are the additional pieces of information that we can supply to delegates so that when they turn up to your session, they might, if there's additional notes or PowerPoint slides or handouts of any kind that you would like them to have access to, then they'll have access to that in the lead up to the event. So it's important to try to meet those deadlines as much as possible. And that typically means obviously that you need to have something in place to submit to us in a PDF handout, no more than a few pages in length, that will then be uploaded onto the FILEX website for our delegates to access. We'll also reach out to you with equipment and AV request forms. So just reconfirming the equipment that you need. What audio visual access do you need? Do you need a head mic, a lapel mic? Do you need an iPod connectivity so that you can play music through an iPod or an additional, device rather than playing it through a laptop? What do you need to make your session work from an AV side? And then just any other correspondence. There might be things around sponsorship. We might have someone reach out to us and request to sponsor you, in which case we would obviously talk to you about that. So anything and everything FILEX related, we'll be reaching out with all of that information periodically between October and April next year. And it's super helpful to us if you can keep an eye on those emails and make sure that you respond to them really quickly. Again, the size and scope of a program like FILEX means that our team at the Association Specialists are working their little butts off around the clock to try to make this event happen. And the quicker and sooner that you can respond to their emails means it's easier for them to make things happen. All right. So then Sean says, if a FILEX attendee wants to do a presenter certain course, say battle ropes, kettlebell, or boxing, does the attendee need to have done a previous course outside FILEX, i.e. a previous boxing, kettlebell, or rope course? Or could that PT be sort of attending a taster? Yeah, fantastic question, Sean. Absolutely, they can attend. Anyone can attend these sessions. If it was a session that was perhaps more targeted towards someone that already had experience, then I would encourage you to reference that in the session title and session description. So, for instance, let's say that you wanted to offer a session that was for everyone. It might use the word fundamentals or foundations or something that helps people understand that it's going to be an entry-level type session. Then perhaps you might want to use the word advanced or progressed or something along those lines to help people understand that it's more suited to a more advanced trainer in that area. And again, in the session description, feel free to highlight if you think that that's more suitable to someone that's a little bit more advanced than just the entry-level delegate. We're looking for sessions across the gamut. So it's not only sessions that are just for everyone. We're quite happy to offer some sessions that are a little bit more advanced focused. If that's something that you've got up your sleeve, then yeah, definitely feel free. All right, what questions do you guys have? If there's anything, Andrew says, how many practical sessions are on offer? Oh, good question. I'm not sure the total number yet because we have to have a look at the room allocations across the event itself. So in terms of how many are available for a delegate to attend, that could I couldn't tell you the exact number right now, but I can definitely find that out for you if that's important to know. What other questions do you guys have? Anything else that's coming to mind? Just give you a moment to jot anything down into the comments box. Lee, in 2019, will there be an independent indoor cycle space for delivery of content other than the branded products that were delivered in the commercial hall on those brand stands this year? Good question. So the sessions that were delivered on those bikes, we also had people that weren't delivering just branded sessions. So let's say that it was as an example, a Stages bike. It's not only Stages content that could be delivered on those. We have to the bike sponsorship from people that are willing to be a part of FILEX. And as I mentioned, getting equipment can be really, really hard. So in terms of would there be a separate independent indoor cycle space, I'm not sure whether it would have a dedicated room or whether it will stay on the stand at the fitness show as yet. We're still working through some of those details. But if you've got specific feedback or questions around why that might be valuable for you, then definitely feel free to email me directly and we can talk through that for sure. All right, anything else? Thanks, Lee. Fantastic. Well, I'm not going to take up any more. Oh, here we go. Andrew, what requests have you received from FILEX 2018? Re the kinds of practical sessions delegates would like to know more about? Really good question. So a lot of the space that we're getting questions on are in the group PT, group fitness space. Lots of that. People want to know, they want to have lots more stuff in terms of how they're working with groups, partner training, body weight, high intensity stuff, you know, doing more with less is always a really big theme. So if you're an outdoor trainer, how can you have one piece of kit and then turn it into something that, you know, that lets you deliver incredible sessions for a range of different people? So that's been something that's popped up a lot. What else have we been getting in terms of practical sessions? It's really just the group stuff. It's huge. And I think, you know, FILEX 2018 really highlighted that for us, as we saw that a lot of the really big group practical rooms were having, were the types of sessions like Mindy Millray, for instance, where people were getting a lot of really incredible stuff that they could take away and just do body weight partner stuff that was fun. So those types of things definitely there. In the strength and conditioning space, people always want to know more about things like, you know, the key lifts. So deadlift technique, squat technique, you know, anything along those lines, typically more around the fundamentals than it is around advanced stuff. So we're not really seeing a lot in the Olympic lifting space, but more around just sort of like the fundamental lifts and how you can progress like a beginner that's only just learned how to do a bodyweight squat up through different progressions to be able to do things that are more advanced. So yeah, they're probably the two main areas that we get a lot of requests from. Great question. All right. And I guess further to Andrew's question, what I would recommend is that's such a great question. It's really important to make sure that what you're serving meets a need. So what you're delivering to, you know, to delegates that are attending is exactly what they want. But it's also important that you're speaking to something that you're an expert on, or that you have a lot of knowledge in, or that, you know, that you've got that experience in. So don't be waylaid if you're thinking, oh, but my stuff isn't in that space. Still submit it, because we're also looking, you know, now that I've said that we're looking for things like, you know, partner training, group training, HIIT training, all that kind of stuff. If I get 100 submissions of that, then obviously it means the chances of yours being selected are significantly smaller, proportionally smaller. So also just put in whatever you feel is of interest and value on your side as well. You just never know. We're always looking for different concepts and new ideas to put in. All right, guys, I'm going to leave you there. Thanks, Simone. So let me just pull up. Oh, I've lost my last slide. I'm going to pull up the email addresses for you, so that if you would like to reach out to us with anything, then you absolutely can. Here we go. All right, so if you would like to ask any questions about the submission process, send those questions through to the first email address. That's filex@theassociationspecialist.com.au. So they'll be able to help you out if you're having any technical difficulties, there's any challenges with uploading session content or application information to the submission portal, which is called Corinda. They're the people to help you for that. If you've got more specific questions around things such as content, or, you know, is this a good idea for a submission? What do you think? Blah, 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 that type of stuff. Then you can feel free to email that directly to me. That's Alisha, ALISHA @filex.com.au. And I'm more than happy to answer any of those types of questions and help however I can. If I don't have the answer, then I'll push you over to filex@theassociationspecialist.com.au if it's more logistics in nature. Oh, you can't see it. I don't know why that's not showing you. Okay, I'll just type it into the box for you over here. So the first one is filex@theassociationspecialist.com.au. That's for all the logistics stuff. And then if it's for me, if you've got content questions, or you'd like to know a little bit more about, you know, session idea might be a good idea, or the type of thing that we're looking for, then you can email it to me here, Alisha@filex.com.au. All right, guys, if that's it for now, I'm going to let you all go. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope this has been of value. And I really look forward to seeing lots of awesome submissions coming through, and hope to meet tons of you on site at FILEX 2019. Have a great day. Bye.